Here we back. Yeah, we back. Now, I don't even know where to start with this one, man. I don't even know where to begin. I know you've seen the title of the video and you thought I was lying or exaggerating, but no, I'm actually telling 100% facts. If you take a look up on the screen right here, we got this gentleman right here, a local terrorist from northern Mali, sitting down for an interview on France 24, the national state-owned broadcaster of the French government. No, I'm not lying. No, this is not a Saturday Night Live comedy skit. This is real life. This really happened. This really happened. Imagine a well-known terrorist, somebody who's out here causing chaos, massacring civilians, attacking villages, destabilizing a sovereign nation. Imagine somebody like this just casually walks into CNN or Fox News for an 8 p.m. interview. Imagine that, right? Now, these are the same people talking about human rights and we have to protect the innocent civilians. But here they are giving a platform to somebody who's out here committing crimes against humanity, against innocent civilians all over Mali. What's crazy about it to me is that nobody seems to care, as if it's totally normal for France, a nation who claims to uphold democracy and fight terrorism, to be given a platform to somebody committing crimes against humanity, against the innocent civilians of a sovereign nation. Now, as you already know, in the Sahel region of Africa, the nations of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger in the past couple years have told the French government, the French military, the French media, the French ambassadors, it's time to leave the country, right? It's over. Our relationship is over, right? Go the fuck back home, right? Now, the reason why France was originally in the country, the reason why they sent their military to invade the country was under the false pretext of fighting terrorism, of protecting innocent civilians, right? And who were they fighting against? They were fighting against guys like this. They were fighting against terrorists like this. This guy was labeled a terrorist just 10 years ago, right? Now, fast forward to today, now he's getting invited to the French capital for a primetime interview, as if he's a rapper dropping a new album. Now the Western media has changed their language that they use when they refer to him. Originally, he was a terrorist. Originally, he was a bandit. Now they're calling him a rebel, borderline a freedom fighter. Now, what has changed from 10 years ago to the present day? Back 10 years ago, France had intervened militarily in Mali under the banner of fighting terrorism, right? They had their boots on the ground. They had to stop the rise of terrorist groups in the area, right? And the Western media and all of France's allies ran with that narrative. No questions asked. It was the perfect excuse for France to maintain their military presence in the region under the guise of counterterrorism. But now, if you've been keeping track of the situation in the area, then you know that things have changed dramatically over the past couple years. The pro-Western governments in the region have been overthrown by force, by the military, right? So now you have a rise in military governments that no longer feel like taking orders from France. There's been major shifts in power, right? They've kicked out the French military. They've kicked out the French media. They've kicked out the French ambassador. They've cut economic ties. They've cut military ties. They've told France, you don't got to go home, but you got to get the hell up out of here, right? Mali did it first, then Burkina Faso, then last year, Niger did the same. And these three nations have now formed a federation where they have united their economic, military, and social and human capital to protect themselves from threats, both domestic and international. And as you already know, France has been scrambling. France has been scrambling, taking major losses. But now, in a twist of events, the same exact man that they labeled a terrorist just 10 years ago, right? Now, on some type of the enemy of my enemy is my friend type of nonsense, they are now calling him a rebel leader fighting for his independence. My goodness. Now you have France 24. Keep in mind, France 24 is the media, is the state-owned media. This is the media house owned by the government, right? They brought him onto the media house owned by the government, the terrorists. Due to the fact that France now sees the government of Mali as an enemy or a hostile element, they are now willing to collaborate with the same terrorists because they have a common enemy. France is doing this simply due to their own self-interest, because France wants to destabilize the current government in power, right? Because the current government in power has cut ties with them and pushed them out of the region. So by now putting their support behind these terrorists from the north, they can now weaken the central government, right? And make it easier for them to regain their influence that they lost. And it's not just France, right? Because you got other Western powers like the United States that also have a vested interest in maintaining influence in the region. And as you already know, with the rise of these military governments, these nations have now been looking towards alternative partnerships, right? They're not looking towards the same tried and true Western traditional partnership. They want to shop around and see what somebody else has to offer. And the United States doesn't like that. And you know, the United States is going to support everything France wants to do. But anyways, before I continue, right, let me jump into the footage from this clown right here, from this bandit right here, from this criminal right here. And I'm going to come back with my commentary. Let's go.
Our vindication highlighted today is the political and legal status of the Zawad. But what is certain, regardless of the situation, the decision has been made to completely liberate the territory of Zawad from its occupants, whether they are from the Genoa government, ours, or its allies.
What does it concretely mean?
It means that we will see later, but for now, our territory will be freed from its occupants.
So concretely, independence, autonomy?
We will see later. For now, we carry a political status that means many things within itself, and we do not think that today it is a question of leaving that. The most important thing today is to resist, survive, and also withstand all threats.
Now, let's take a look at some of the reactions on social media. This person said, the empire is now at the point of desperation, where the French state-owned TV news channel invites the spokesperson of an actual real-life terrorist organization that kills Africans in West Africa to discuss how he will kill Africans on their behalf. Europe has stopped pretending. Bro, this is madness, bro. This is insane, man. This is insane. Now, we've always had our speculations about who might be supporting these bandits in the desert, because these random guys in the desert, how the hell you got the latest military equipment? How the hell you got all these drones and all this military equipment? You're in the fucking desert, you got flip-flops on and a fucking turban on. Where you get this shit, bro? So now for France to just come out in the open from behind the curtain and bring this guy on for an interview like he's doing a podcast or some shit, like, bro, this is crazy. Anyway, let's continue. This person said, France is profoundly desperate and will do anything to regain its power in the Sahel. And if it means backing terrorists, then so be it. Absolutely. This person said, no mercy for any terrorist. Anyone trying to get foreign influence to infiltrate Africa, put them all to sleep forever. Stat. This person said, wait, ain't this guy part of Al-Qaeda in the Sahel? A whole terrorist in your midst? He got an invite from France 24? Shit is crazy, bro. Let's continue. This person said, I remember vividly when France sent fighter jets to Mali to bomb these people as they were labeled a terrorist group. Exactly. Now all of a sudden they're rebels. They're rebels fighting for their freedom in Mali against the oppressive government. This is crazy. This person said, hey, France 24, I've noticed that you don't hesitate to interview people who slaughter African civilians and want to destabilize African countries, but you never go to these countries and talk to everyday people about how they feel about their leaders. This person said, a comedian wandering around France. Let him come and free his Azawad in Mali. We are waiting for him with joy. What a joker. It is in France that he will tell his life story. Let him come to Mali. Now, Azawad is apparently, the sovereign territory that these terrorists are trying to establish in the country, right? They're trying to take some independent territory away from the government and take it for themselves. And the central government is like, no, we are not going to give you this territory. We are going to fight you. And then they're fighting back like, no, we are taking this territory for ourselves. And now you got the French government giving them visibility on their state-owned broadcaster. Now let's continue. This person said, France is literally, without pretending or hiding, declaring war on Africa by proxy. Now, we're going to discuss that later on in the video. Let's continue. This person said, is there no military in Mali? This news channel should be shut down. Now, if I'm not mistaken, take a look up on the screen. I believe back in 2022, Mali suspended the French broadcasters, France 24 and RFI. So I believe the French media has already been suspended in these nations, which, like I said, everybody at that time was trying to condemn these governments, saying, look at them going against freedom of speech. But why would you give this type of bullshit visibility in your country? Why would you give the enemies of the state primetime promotion on the TV? Bro, fuck you. Let's get out of here, man. Let's continue. Now, I believe it was about maybe 2 months ago, this same coalition of terrorists had scored a major victory against the Malian government, right? Take a look up on the screen. Rebels in northern Mali, keep in mind, they don't call them terrorists anymore, they call them rebels. Rebels in northern Mali said on Saturday that they had killed and injured dozens of soldiers aligned with the country's military government. A coalition led by rebels said Saturday that it had seized armored vehicles, trucks, and tankers during the fighting on Thursday and Friday. A spokesman for the rebel coalition said that the enemy had suffered huge losses in terms of lives and equipment, including dozens of dead and wounded. Now, this same group is launching is launching attack and waging war against a sovereign government, and France is giving them visibility and giving them promotion on their state-owned broadcaster. Listen, man, what's understood doesn't need to be explained. Now, let's continue. Now, it goes deeper than this, man. It goes way deeper because apparently during this interview, this terrorist, because that's what we're going to call him. We're not going to call him a rebel. We're not going to call him a freedom fighter. We're going to call him a terrorist. That's what he is. You are causing terror. You are massacring innocent women and children. You are a terrorist. You deserve to be dead. Now, during this interview, he said this: we have long-standing and diverse relations with Ukraine, right? Go to the last paragraph. He said this: we have long-standing and diverse relations with Ukraine, he told France 24, answering a question about the training of militants by Ukrainian instructors, including in the use of drones. He said, we communicate with all sorts of Ukrainian agencies, and the exchange of intelligence is not the only thing that we discuss. Now, if you remember, about a month ago, I dropped a video entitled, take a look up on the screen, Mali cuts ties with Ukraine after a Ukrainian-backed terrorist attack on the Malian armed forces. And also, I believe Burkina Faso and Niger also did the same thing in cutting ties with Ukraine after this was discovered. Now, take a look up on the screen. About a month ago, West African military governments, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, they wrote to the UN over Ukrainians' alleged rebel support. Now, we got to dive deep into this entire geopolitical mess that's happening in the Sahel right now, right? At the center of it, you got Mali, right? Led by President Assimi Goïta. Shout out to the big dog, President Assimi Goïta. That's my dog right there, right? Then you got these so-called terrorists, these so-called jihadists, these so-called separatists that have been wreaking havoc and causing terror on the innocent civilians, the black communities in Mali for years and decades. Now, this is where it gets crazy, right? Now you got this guy coming on to France 24, somebody who has admitted that he has diplomatic relations with the government of Ukraine in military cooperation, military intelligence, and military support. Ukraine, a country that's been given billions of dollars and an endless arsenal of weapons by the United States. In fact, just 2 days ago, take a look up on the screen, the White House and the Pentagon announced massive military aid package for Ukraine. Another military aid package being sent to Ukraine. And now for those of us who may have been wondering, man, where are these guys getting these weapons? Where are these desert dwellers getting this material, right? Now it's starting to make sense. Where do you think all these weapons are going? They're not just staying in Ukraine. They're probably making their ways into the hands of these so-called terrorists who are destabilizing the region and attacking black people. Now you got France, who, like I said before, they've been kicked out of the region, right? Now, they are now openly supporting these same terrorist groups that are tearing the region apart, inviting them onto their platform as if they are local celebrities. I don't understand what's going on, bro. But now France is endorsing these terrorists and legitimizing these terrorists simply because they share a common enemy, President Assimi Goïta and the current government of Mali. Now, let's talk about the United States, right? Because the United States claims to be fighting terrorism globally, right? And as we already know, the United States, a longtime ally of France. And by extension, they're supporting France's actions in Mali. Remember, the United States has been giving billions and billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine. And now we're seeing some of that same military support making its way into the hands of terrorists. So at this point, we can comfortably come to the conclusion that both France and the United States are complicit in this war against Mali. Because by backing Ukraine, who is also backing these terrorist groups, you are providing support to these terrorist groups. You are indirectly fueling the chaos that's tearing the country apart. And it's all just to maintain Western influence in the region. That's all it's about. That's all it's about, for their own selfish corporate interests. They're willing to sacrifice the lives of millions of innocent civilians, millions of innocent black men, women, and children just for their own selfish corporate interests, bro. And you mean to tell me these people are not our enemies? These men are not our enemies? Man, listen, man. Now, back to President Assimi Goïta, the president of Mali, right? Here you got a black man who's basically at war with multiple factions at the same time, right? He's at war with the local terrorists on the ground. He's at war with France by proxy, and also the United States by proxy. So it's not just fighting these terrorist groups. He's fighting a global power structure that's invested in keeping Mali weak and unstable. Here you got a black man who's trying to stabilize his nation for the benefit of his people. And in the process, he's now been made an enemy by various different factions. Because by eliminating Western influence and shopping around for different partners, different partnerships, now France wants him gone because they've lost control over the country, right? And the United States, siding with France and supporting Ukraine, they've now aligned with the terrorists. So now you got one man standing against an entire system that is propped up by billions of dollars, endless weapons, and they have a stranglehold on the mainstream media, so they control the narrative that goes out to the general public. They control the narrative in the mainstream consciousness. And now you got the Western powers trying to play both sides of the fence. On one hand, they claim to be fighting terrorism, but on the other hand, they're backing and supporting the same terrorist groups destabilizing Mali because it suits their interests. Take a look up on the screen. Armed groups besieging the towns in northeastern Mali are driving residents, many children, to hunger. This is what they are supporting. You know, France wants to bring this guy onto their platform. The United States wants to back Ukraine, and Ukraine backing these guys who are driving innocent children to hunger and famine. This is what they're creating. All for what? Just for some white guys back in France to get rich? You gotta be kidding me, bro. Now, take a look up on the screen. Overshadowed by the wars in Ukraine, the Middle East, and Sudan, the conflict in the Sahel rarely garners global headlines, yet is contributing to a sharp rise in migration from the region towards Europe at a time when anti-immigrant far-right parties are on the rise and some European states are tightening their borders. The data shows that the number of migrants arriving in Europe from the Sahel countries, Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, rose 62% to 17,300 in the first 6 months of 2024 from 10,000 a year earlier. Now, it is wild to me that the United States government has remained silent on France giving this guy promotion and giving him a platform on their state-owned media, right? France openly supporting a terrorist group, giving them airtime on the national broadcaster. The same terrorist group terrorizing innocent civilians in Mali. What happened to protecting the human rights and the innocent civilians, bro? What happened to that bullshit they were talking about? And the only reason why the United States government is exhibiting this type of hypocrisy is because the United States and France, they are allies, they are partners in maintaining Western economic and political control over Africa, right? France destabilizes countries like Mali, and the United States backs them up with no questions asked. Both of these nations benefit from keeping countries like Mali weak and unstable because it gives them access to the resources and it ensures that African nations cannot challenge Western hegemony. That's it and that is all, bro. End of discussion. That is it and that is all. They don't care about human rights. They don't care about innocent civilians. They care about maintaining their corporate interests. That is it. So if the United States were to actually sanction France, they would be sanctioning themselves. They would be punishing themselves. They'd be going to war against their own interests. And that's not going to happen. That's never going to happen, bro. That's not going to happen. And I also want to talk about, in that article, they talked about migration, right? As you already know, immigration is a major hot button topic right now in many of these so-called Western nations. In Europe, the United States, immigration is a hot topic. But here is the contradiction, in my opinion. This is the contradiction. They love to complain about immigration. Oh, the immigrants are flooding our borders. But they're the ones that create the conditions that force people to migrate to live in better conditions. They complain about immigration, but they profit from the instability in our nations, right? They create the problem. They pretend to be the victim of the problem after they created the war zones and the poverty to benefit themselves economically. And I don't want this to be taken lightly. The fact that France gave airtime to a terrorist, this is not something to be taken lightly. Keep in mind, this is the state-owned broadcaster. This is controlled by the government. They control who gets airtime. They control who gets a microphone, right? They're not going to give somebody a platform who is against the interests of the government. The reason why they invited him onto the platform is because he is operating in the interest of the state. End of discussion. And you might ask yourself, why would France support chaos in Africa? Why would they support chaos in Mali? You would think on the surface, it would be like common sense that a stable environment would be productive for business, etc., etc. But no, they don't see it like that. The Western powers, they don't see it that way. You would think that if Mali was strong and stable, with a stable economy and solid security, that it would be a productive and fertile environment for everybody to come invest. But they don't see it like that. You see, France and the Western powers and their allies, they actually gain more when our nations are weak and chaotic and unstable, right? Because a strong and stable nation is able to negotiate for better deals, right? A strong and stable nation is able to push back against exploitation. A strong and stable nation is able to harness its own resources to benefit its own people, to the exclusion of outsiders, right? So that would actually undermine France's control on the region. So if Mali is in shambles economically and politically, it's easier for France to manipulate the situation to their advantage. That's why they support the chaos and instability in our nations. That's really the name of the game, man. And then they want to complain about immigration when we come to their nations, right? Shit is ridiculous, bro. But anyways, man, I don't want this video to be too long, man. Shout out to Assimi Goïta. Shout out to Ibrahim Traoré. Shout out to President Chiani of Niger. I know the good brothers, they're under a lot of pressure right now. They got a lot of enemies right now, both foreign and domestic. So, you know, I'm sending my support to them brothers. You know, shout out to them. You know, much love to them. Much love to our brothers and sisters in those areas living inside those countries. You know, shout out to y'all, man. Shout out to y'all. And as for this terrorist that we talked about today, listen, You live by the sword, you die by the sword. It's gonna be a celebration when they kill you, right? When I find out they killed you, when I find out you got killed by the Malian government, listen, I'm gonna pop a bottle. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna celebrate. I'm gonna have a party. I'm gonna throw a party for real. Fuck you. Anyways, man, it's one Nefer Card Celine back in the Billy Yes Indeed. Cash App in the description. Support the channel, man. Support the album. Peace.
No. Feel like I'm 75. Know that your team be full of them traders. You know that can never be mine. I'm grabbing a thought when I drive. I'm back in my zone and we young. She said that she ready to come be my wife, yeah, hoping I don't do her wrong. I gave her my word in this bond. I'm whipping the best like a lamb. I mean no chicken and lamb. Accustomed to call me the man. I never be up on the gram. I'm keeping that way undercover. She want me to tell her I love her. I told her I'm breaking the rules. I told her we making the news. Back in my city, they loving me. Standing alone, I'm 100 deep. Enemy plotting and still in reach. They try to make sure that we underneath. Trying to make sure that we never make it. Coming for power, come get acquainted. Coming for everything that I wanted. Feeling like Drake, but I really wrote it. Feeling like Kendrick, I'm checking names. Gotta roll up while I go insane. Got so much stress, I've been gained weight. Stuffing these racks in this Louis case. One thing for certain, I'm about to check. Keep it 100 and nothing less. Stick with the family since day one. Had to stay down till my day come. Had to stay down, but I'm never patient. Hop on the mic and I'm motivated. Hop on the mic and I drive a classic. Haters can't see me, they copping glasses. Back in the studio making magic. Got a new tape and it's in production. Back on my business, I got a budget. Staying low key when I'm out in public. Feel like I'm 75. Know that your team be full of them traders. You know that can never be mine. I'm grabbing a thought when I drive. I'm back in my zone and we young. She said that she ready to come be my wife, yeah, hoping I don't do her wrong. I gave her my word in this bond. I'm whipping the best like a lamb. I mean no chicken and lamb. Accustomed to call me the man. I never be up on the gram. I'm keeping that way undercover. She want me to tell her I love her. I told her I'm breaking the rules. I told her we making the news.